but it's also, so people listening to this probably are familiar with concepts such as the quantum field or the 0 point field, the field of infinite possibilities. So the Akashic Records basically are part of that quantum field, and therefore they can provide us with healing energy. So when we go into the records, we can retrieve information about previous lifetimes that we've experienced, especially if there is unresolved trauma or issues or challenges that we need to go back and resolve so we can heal the past. But we can also retrieve information about the present. So, what is my soul purpose? What am I here really to do? How do I get aligned with that soul purpose? How can I create the life that is most fulfilling, where I can be of most service to humanity? So all of these questions and a lot more we can explore when we tap into.
Peace and riches blessings. I am Michael B. Beckwith, the host of Take Back Your Mind. Peace and blessings, everyone, and welcome to Take Back Your Mind. I am the host of Take Back Your Mind and the founder of the Agape International Spiritual Center. And every week I have the joyful opportunity to be with individuals who are making a difference on this planet in a very powerful way. Individuals who have, in their own way, grown and unfolded to be able to take back their own mind and have it not be hijacked by the world of appearances and low-level conversations and news reels that aren't really news, but are put out there basically to keep us desensitized, but at the same time keep us oftentimes in fear, doubt, worry, and a feeling of scarcity. But here at Take Back Your Mind, I bring people that can share their story and give wonderful nuggets of truth in which we can continue to evolve, burst out of the simulation, the matrix of separation, and become more and more of our real and true self at this time in human history. And guess who I have? I have Dr. Josephine Hardman. You know, I've been on her podcast, and she may remind you about that and tell you all about it. And I will as well. But let me tell you a little bit about her. She's a certified intuitive healer, Akashic Records practitioner, and teacher, and transformation expert. 2017, check this out. She left a successful career in academia, teaching English literature to do spiritual work full time. Her life's mission is to help healers, coaches, and spiritual practitioners heal themselves so they can do their most aligned and impactful high-level work with their clients. And so many of you out there are on that path of assisting others and are already doing it. So this is going to be right up your alley. She uses a range of tools, including deep self-inquiry, psychosynthesis, matrix energetics, and primarily the Akashic Records. She's also the host of her own podcast called the Inner Work Spiritual Growth Podcast. That's the one I had the privilege of being on with her a couple of months ago. And so she's now with me on Take Back Your Mind. Josephine.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you for that beautiful introduction and for this invitation. I'm thrilled to be here with you.
Absolutely. Two things to get started. One, give us your journey in terms of the skills that you now have. I mean, did you have these gifts in childhood, or did you develop? And then segue into, you had a very successful career in academia, then you left it. So first, tell us a little bit about your backstory, and then the courage it took, or the prompting it took for you to leap into spiritual work full time.
Yes, perfect. I can do that. So growing up, actually, I grew up in a home, which is a little bit of an unusual thing, I think, but I grew up in a home with a mother who is a psychotherapist and a medium and a healer herself.
Wait a minute. Stop.
Yeah, okay.
Psychotherapist,
Yes.
and a medium
Yes.
and a
Yeah.
healer. She did all of
Yeah,
that.
she
This is your
blends
mom.
it all. Yeah,
This is your mom.
psychology and yeah, that's my mom. So growing up, I had her influence very strongly. And then my dad, who has been a lifelong yogi and meditator, he's done transcendental meditation all his life. And he kept a deck of tarot cards in his desk in his office at home that I would go and look at and be mesmerized by the tarot. So I grew up in a home where all of these spiritual endeavors and explorations were very much encouraged. So I was exposed to a lot of these different modalities really early on and was very much encouraged to develop my own intuitive gifts and multidimensional gifts. And I'm also a highly sensitive person and an empath. So just all of that was very much encouraged. Now, the thing is, at some point, and I think this is true for a lot of us with highly sensitive traits, it became a little bit too much. So
Yeah.
just feeling my feelings so strongly all the time and being able to pick up on energy and other people in the room, it just felt like too much. So at some point, I started to retreat a little bit. I like to say I started living from the neck up
Yes.
because it felt like too much to handle, so much energy coming through, so many feelings, depth of feelings. So I started to use some coping mechanisms like intellectualizing, for example, and going up into the head. And that's where, and I also just naturally started doing really well academically. And I figured out, oh, that's a way I can get validation from people. I can get external validation. I can feel successful, right? I can get the straight A's, and feel really good about myself.
Right.
So that was sort of my way into the academic.
Instead of spiritualizing the intellect, you intellectualize the
Yes,
spirit for that
that's
one.
such a good way of putting it. Yeah, yeah, I went the other way. So I went to school, I got my BA in English, then I got my master's in English literature, then I got my PhD in English literature. And at the same time that I was getting my PhD, I was teaching college, so teaching Shakespeare and writing and English. And that a lot of that was very, very rewarding because I am a teacher, just at heart by nature. That's one of the gifts that I came in with and one of the things that I'm here to do. So the teaching aspect was always very rewarding to me. But what started to happen while I was still in academia, and this would happen even, for example, like extra looking from the outside looking in, right? You might see, for instance, I was invited, one of the pinnacles of my career, if you will, is that I was invited to give a talk at Harvard for up and coming scholars of Shakespeare and English literature. So I went and I gave the talk, and it's supposed to be the most rewarding moment, and it was. There was a lot of really good stuff, but I also felt like there was a part of me almost leaving my body and looking down at me from up above,
Mm-hmm.
and asking, is this really where you're meant to be? Is this really the most fulfilling, aligned place for you? Is this where you are supposed to be of service? Are you doing your highest service here?
Right.
And it felt like the answer to that was no. So it felt like there was a little bit of dissonance, or a lot of dissonance, even though so many of the experiences were very rewarding. But so this part of me started coming in. Now I realize it was my higher self
Yes.
coming in, observing, and just letting me know this might not be the most aligned path. So then I was faced with a dilemma and a choice of, do I stay here on this path of external success, external validation, recognition, all of those things, which feel good, right? To the ego self, feel really
Mhm.
good. But that might not be where the highest truth is for us. So do I stay there, or do I make the leap into the unknown and leave this academic career behind to go back to my roots in a sense of doing the spiritual work and using all of my intuitive gifts, and getting trained in different modalities, which is ultimately what I chose to do. Yeah.
Right. A couple of things. One, when you talked about going up out of your body, so to speak, and getting this message, I just spoke at Agape this past Sunday, and I shared a personal experience where that happened to me as well.
Oh,
Where
yeah.
I was in a class, and a woman, name of Dr. Juanita Dunn, asked me to do the opening prayer, and I was new to the class. I'd had a spiritual awakening, but this is my beginning of taking classes. And I walked up to do it, and I started to speak, and I was lifted, and I could see the top of my head.
Yeah.
And then I could see beyond the church I was in, and I was at one with all of life. And I heard her say, and I stopped speaking though, because I was just shocked at what was happening to me. I heard her say, "Continue." So
Okay.
I continued the prayer and sat down, and she looked at me with those very mystical eyes because she knew what had happened.
Oh,
So
wow.
when I hear you say that, I know exactly
Yes.
what you're talking. Those are
That's
very
it.
pivotal moments
Yes. Incredible.
of seeing yourself. Now, when you went through all this academic work, I imagine in hindsight you can look back and see where a lot of that was very helpful for you to develop the
Yes.
sharpness of your intellect that
Oh,
could
yeah.
later on be used by your spiritual self.
Yes, that is such a great point. I feel, and this is one of the things I often say to my students and clients and the people I work with, right? That nothing is ever wasted. So all of those years in academia, um, absolutely trained me and prepared me to be a really good teacher, to be able to develop my own curriculum for the programs that I teach now, the spiritual programs, and just taught me student engagement and
Mm.
how to help students get the best outcomes out of a program. So just all of those things that I can draw upon now. So absolutely.
So when you realized you had reached the end of the road of that part of your career, what were some of the challenges that you faced? I mean, was there fear,
Oh yeah.
or was the prompting so strong that it blocked out the fear, or just a combination
Yeah.
of both?
Yeah, absolutely. All of the above. Um, Definitely I was feeling a sense of grief in my heart
Mm.
that I wasn't on the most aligned path. And then there was also confusion. There was a lot of confusion. That was one of the challenges because I had felt for so long, oh, this is where I'm supposed to be in the academic world, doing this kind of academic research. That's where I belong. So I felt confused. I felt like, well, is this just a case of the grass is greener on the other side, and I'm just wanting something that's, beyond my reach.
Ah,
So there was confusion. Definitely there was fear of losing the material benefits and rewards of a safe academic career, getting tenure, all of those things. Like, oh, you have a job for life. Great, you're set.
right.
So choosing to leave all of that behind. Definitely there was fear. There was also fear of what are my colleagues going to think and say? So how are they going to react? Because a lot of people in the academic community, and I don't want to generalize,
No, but I
but
know what you're saying. What year
yeah,
was this?
this was 2000, well, the end of 2016. Yeah.
Uh-huh. So this field was coming out of the woo-woo stage.
Yes,
Because back in the
exactly.
70s and 60s, 70s, and 80s, except for the
Yeah.
hippies, this was kind of woo-woo, and your parents.
Yes,
This is
right.
this is
Totally.
this is woo-woo. So
Yes,
you're right
so
on the
woo-woo. Yes,
trajectory of, oh, this is legitimate.
right.
But some people
Exactly.
still saw it as woo-woo. Yeah,
Oh, completely. Yes.
yeah,
And they thought I was, I've gone bananas
right,
because I'm leaving this successful career and this trajectory to do spiritual work, to work with the Akashic Records, which is
right,
like one of the most like not really, because we can work with the records in really grounded ways and we can talk about that, but it is really a very woo-woo thing to try to explain to people that are not already have had an awakening or are in the spiritual community. So yeah,
right.
that was part of
So
it too.
in terms of your personality structure, I mean, you had, I guess, had developed a certain
Yes.
personality to be in academia.
Yes.
Did you have to peel away layers in order to really
Yes.
step into you? Because when I met
Completely.
you, you're full on energy. You're just full on in the zone, so to speak, of the spirit. So did you have
Yes.
to get rid of something?
Yes, completely. I built this identity as the scholar, the academic researcher, right? The Shakespeare scholar. Um, and all of that, again, as I said, was based so much on, living from the neck up.
Yeah.
So, and intellect and living so much in the mental space, which I had overdeveloped for a long time. And that also involved that I was escaping my body a
Mm,
lot of the time. So living out of the body, living in the head instead of the heart. So I had to peel away the layers of this academic identity and get back to who am I when I'm just in a room by myself. There's no
hmm.
one there, right? And it's just me in my heart, in connection to the universe. Who am
Right.
I? What am I here to do? What is my contribution supposed to be? And even if I'm not getting external validation or recognition. So giving those things up also was challenging
Yeah.
because then you have to start to develop unconditional love for yourself
Yeah.
and not be relying on getting that validation from the outside world. Yeah.
Yeah, you're giving a kind of a roadmap for people. It doesn't matter whether they're going to go into something spiritual or be a
Yeah.
doctor or a jockey or whatever, that who are you when you're by yourself? I mean, that's a
Yes.
powerful question. Who are you, when you are by yourself and you're not having to put on a particular personality to go to work, to be an
Yes.
academician, to whatever the thing is,
Yes.
who are you? This is a great question for introspection so people
Yes.
can begin to see that perhaps they have shapeshifted a lot of their lifetime to fit in to certain status quo places to survive, to make
Yeah.
money,
Yes.
etc.,
Yes.
to please their
Completely.
parents or whatever the case may
Oh,
be.
yes.
But at the end of
Completely.
the day, we didn't come in this incarnation to do that. We actually came to be ourselves.
I know. It's so true. Yeah, that's such a great question. And also when we're not in relationship with other people, right? So if there's nobody else around, because I feel sometimes we are playing out these roles
Hmm.
in relationship to other people, right? So trying to be who someone else wants us to be or trying to react in the way that we feel they want us to react. So when we take all of that away and it's just us, I feel that's when we can get to that essential core self. Like, who am I really?
We could unravel the conditioned mind, the habits of who we're
Completely.
trying to be with people when we're by
Yes.
ourselves. That's what meditation helps too.
Oh,
It helps
completely.
peel away the conditioned mind and reactions so that we can be ourselves.
Yes.
I like this conversation, and
Yes.
but I want to also get into the Akashic Records.
Yes.
Break it
Great.
down for us. I mean,
Okay.
there's probably a lot of people that listen
Yeah.
that know about the Akashic Records, but
Mhm.
there's probably a lot of people who don't. So
Yes.
break it down for us for a beginner.
Yes, absolutely. So let me start with the basic premise that as humans, generally speaking, we tend to buy into what I call the illusion of materiality.
Hmm.
So the illusion that, oh, there's this desk in front of me. I can touch it. It is solid. So and the walls are solid. So it seems like we're living in a material world, but really everything is energy. The
Yes.
desk is vibrating. It's not
Hmm.
really solid. The walls are not really solid. So we actually live in this sort of cosmic soup, if you will. Um, and we also all exist and are held in this universal energy grid,
Yes.
right, which interpenetrates all of us, and from which we arise and from to that space that we're going to return to, right? So all that is oneness, all of that. So the Akashic records are basically a field of energy and information.
Hmm.
So they are always present encoded in that universal energy field.
Hmm.
And as the name implies, they are constantly recording all of the events that we experience as humans. So every word, every action, every deed, every choice that has ever occurred is recorded in the Akashic records. People also describe them as a field of memory.
Yeah.
Because everything we do as humans, right? Nothing is ever lost. There's an imprint to everything that we do. Energy can never be destroyed, it just changes form. So everything we do in our human lifetimes is recorded in the Akashic Records. So it's a field of information, it's a field of memory, but it's also, so people listening to this probably are familiar with concepts such as the quantum field or the 0 point field, the field of infinite possibilities. So the Akashic Records basically are part of that quantum field, and therefore they can provide us with healing energy. So when we go into the records, we can retrieve information about previous lifetimes that we've experienced, especially if there is unresolved trauma or issues or challenges that we need to go back and resolve so we can heal the past. But we can also retrieve information about the present. So, what is my soul purpose? What am I here really to do? How do I get aligned with that soul purpose? How can I create the life that is most fulfilling, where I can be of most service to humanity? So all of these questions and a lot more we can explore when we tap into.
So basically, it holds everything. It holds every thought that you have.
Yes,
It's like
absolutely.
it's register. So
Yes.
you assist people in. So someone comes to you in a dilemma
Yeah.
about either a challenge they're going through, or maybe they're just trying to get a greater awareness as to what their calling is, why
Yes.
they incarnated.
Yes.
Why did they choose to take this incarnation, and what did they choose to do while they were here? You can catch, you can see that what was registered even before they were
Yes.
born, I imagine.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yes, we can
And
get that
yeah,
information, and we can also get what I call information about the in-between lifetimes
yes.
period. So, when we leave one lifetime, we return to non-physical form, and then our soul or higher self at that soul level is making conscious choices for the next incarnation, what the challenges are going to be, the lessons, what we haven't learned yet that we have to learn, who are
Hmm.
the players going to be there involved. So we can go in and look at that as well.
Let me jump back just for a second.
Yeah.
Are your parents still alive?
Yes, they both
And,
are.
and what
Yes.
and what happened when you left academia and decided to go into this field that they were so familiar with? What did they
Yes.
feel? I wanted to just get a feeling of that.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. They were really supportive. They were excited. I mean, they've always been supportive of whatever choice I
Were they
wanted to
surprised or
make.
happy or what?
Oh, yeah. Well, were they surprised? I think my dad was surprised because my dad is an academic as
Uh-huh.
well. So he was a little bit surprised and a little bit worried at first.
Yeah, yeah.
Just, from his human self, which is totally understandable. But then, yeah, they're both extremely supportive. And it was actually my mom who introduced me to the Akashic Records when I was 17 years old.
Uh-huh.
She said she started studying them first and said, "Oh, I found this tool, this modality. It feels like it might be up your alley. Do you want to look at it?" So that's when I first started opening
And
the record.
what was that tool?
That was, yeah, the Akashic Records.
Oh, okay, that was the
Yeah,
tool.
yeah,
So give us a real case example of obviously not gonna share anybody's name or anything,
no, no, no.
but of someone coming to see you and
Yes,
they're either struggling with this lifetime
yes,
or they're trying to have a and figure out what their calling is, and they
yes,
come in and they see you. What happens and what did you do?
yes. Great question. So let me pull out a case study. So for example, I once worked with a client so at the time she was working as a pharmacist,
Mm-hmm.
but was finding it and had been a pharmacist for a while and had had success doing that. But the place where she was working was bought by an outside corporation. The regulations changed. It felt like she couldn't serve her fellow humans in the way that she really wanted to as a pharmacist because like she just wasn't allowed to she was given ridiculous regulations, like you can only talk to a patient for 5 minutes and then you have to like hang up the phone. And she just felt so burnt
Wow.
out and awful doing that. And we could get into a whole other discussion about that. But anyway, so it just felt really inhumane the way that they were asking her to do her job. But she knew she wanted to be of service. She's here to be of service. So she came to me. We went into her Akashic Records. And actually, we were able to go back, like way back to one of her much earlier lifetimes, because in the records we can do past life work. So we went back to a much earlier lifetime and met with an aspect of her that was basically like a medicine woman,
Mm-hmm.
and an herbalist working in a forest. She lived in a forest. She was one with nature in that much earlier lifetime. And she was so connected to the earth and the herbs. And I saw her with the mortar and pestle, doing her thing and being of service in this really beautiful, powerful way. And that was so resonant to her, and it felt so true. And then the records showed us a sequence of lifetimes after that earlier lifetime where um, over time she lost that connection to nature. So
Mm.
the records almost showed us, going forward in time, and then things like the Industrial Revolution happens, right? And she's losing touch with that connection to nature, that organic connection, and to these wise and intuitive gifts, multidimensional gifts that she was already carrying from that previous lifetime. She had been losing touch with that. So we were able to actually call that previous self
Mm.
to come into the present.
Mm.
And then that self had a few messages for her and some gifts of how she could be of service now. So all of that happened, and she felt really empowered. She continued to develop a relationship to that former self, because really time is not linear, right? So
Right.
she can be that former self right now as well, that wise medicine woman. So eventually, and this doesn't happen every time, but she did decide to quit that career. And then she got certified as an herbalist, and she's doing aromatherapy, and she's starting her business. So that was a really positive, empowering outcome to the work.
When you say you were watching, what is the modality? Are you in meditation? Is she in meditation?
Oh
How
yeah.
what is the actual
Yeah, the
procedure for
process.
you? Yeah, what
Yes.
is the process for you going into the Akashic Records?
Yeah. So the way I do it primarily is so it's a centering process, just as we would use for deep meditation
Mm-hmm.
or shamanic journeying or any of these other ways of working with the superconscious
Mm-hmm.
realm and the superconscious field. So we just do some centering, some deep breathing, and then I use a portal prayer that opens the records. And
Mm-hmm.
by the way, if people want to access that, they can get that through my free Akashic Records mini course that I'm so happy to give to everyone, and it's on my website. Um, so I use a portal prayer, and we speak these specific words that, first of all, just to call for protection, to call for light and wisdom, and so we can be receptive
Yeah.
and open to whatever the records most want and need to give us. So I speak the prayer, and then basically that opens the records, and then it's a conversation. I call it a three-way conversation between me, the records, and the client.
Mm-hmm.
So we are receiving, and then sometimes the records will throw out questions that I have to ask the client so we can explore something more deeply. So it just kind of flows organically from there.
So based on your intuition and sensitive nature, you
Yes.
can catch the question or the answer,
Yes.
and then
Yes.
and then you kind of confirm it or validate it with the client.
Yes,
So you
absolutely.
might say, the records are saying that you have
Yeah,
a lifetime. Does that feel right to you? I mean,
exactly.
that
Yes,
goes kind of like that.
absolutely. Yes, we always want to check and make sure that it's resonating. And sometimes the client, if they have access to their own intuition and self-awareness and all of that, They will also receive messages and insights as we go. So it's really a collaborative process.
And how long does a session last, generally speaking?
So yeah, generally 60 minutes.
60 minutes.
Yep.
And what has it? Well, let me ask you another question. Past, present, and the future are happening simultaneously.
Yes.
And we're not linear. We know that. Can you go to the Akashic Records for somebody's future life?
Yeah, that's a great question. So here's how I answer that. Because the records are an ever shifting, ever evolving field, they are alive
Yes.
and they evolve as we evolve. So based on the choices that we make, then the records sort of adjust
Yeah.
themselves and the information can change. So there's nothing pre-written or predetermined,
Right.
but we can go into the records to ask, what is the potential future outcome of a
Right.
choice that I'm making right now? So if I make a choice to leave my career or to marry this person or whatever it is, what is the potential future outcome of that? What is the energy of that? And then we can get a little bit of a sense of it.
Right. I like this the way you're describing the fact that it's alive, it's dynamic.
Yes,
So there could be a future life, but what you decide at this second would
yes,
change the dynamic of that.
exactly.
Then I like to also tell people that when you make a choice and you become more yourself, you're actually changing your past too.
Oh,
The
completely.
past
Yes,
is changing because
yes,
we are nonlinear beings. So what appeared to be a past, a lot of that really didn't happen. It just happened on a certain physical, mental level, but it didn't happen on
yes,
a spiritual level. So that when
completely.
you change here, you've actually changed your past and the
Yes.
outcome of a future all happening.
Oh, yes. It's
Yeah.
all you're healing the past. When you heal something now, you're also healing it in the past, right?
Right.
And you're also healing any remnants of that in your family lineage.
Yes.
Just everything, yeah, is happening at the
Th-
same
This is
time.
how
Yeah.
people heal like a trauma, family trauma, ancestral trauma,
Yes.
descendant trauma. You can heal your
Oh, yeah.
ancestral realm and your descendants because they're
Yes.
coming from you. And so when you change, what gets coded into their DNA is different.
Yes.
So everything is just
Yes.
so I'd like people to understand that everything is fluid
Yes.
based on moment by moment choice.
Yes.
And I think as people come into a greater awareness that this is fluid, I think it gives them more sense of power. And they're not stuck. Well, in
Yes.
my
That's
past
so
life,
true.
I was, blah, 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 and this happened, and I'm,
Oh,
my
yes.
karma is keeping me from, you know,
Yes. No, that's so true. And actually, one of the principles that I teach my students is when we work with the Akashic Records, because we can go into the past and we can go into the past traumas to heal them, but we always want to make sure we are doing it with this principle of current lifetime relevance, is
yes.
what I call it, because we want to go in to retrieve the information, but then immediately ask, how does this illuminate where I am today? How
Mhm.
do I apply it today or make use of it today to create what I want moving forward? So that we're not going to the into the past just for its own sake or to feel victimized again or to use it as some excuse to not move forward, which as humans sometimes we just do that. It's normal. But yeah, so we always want to stay focused on where am I today and how do I heal the
Right.
challenges that are being presented in my life today.
Yeah, it's very important because there used to be like this fundamentalism, like around karma.
Oh,
People would, in the old ways, people would say, well, I can't be successful in this lifetime because my karmic propensity, some things
yes.
I did in the past, is blocking me now.
Yes.
And we would call that karmic fundamentalism because karma can't determine your destiny. It can determine certain starting points, but it can't determine destiny because your destiny is shaped by your attitude and the
Yes.
choices you're making now.
Yes.
So
Yes.
you're in alignment with that
Oh,
based on,
completely,
yeah,
completely aligned with
yeah.
that. And also with, I feel one of the things the Akashic Records can help us do is to release egoic attachments. And this also means like attachments to old stories. So
Hmm.
a story like, oh, because this happened to me in my past, now I am damaged. Or
Right.
because I didn't get what I needed, now I am unworthy, so I can't do X, Y, and Z. So, and to me, those are kind of layers of human density,
Yes.
that we pick up on and then we carry it on our backs, sometimes unconsciously. But the more we tap into the records, because it is a higher level of consciousness that we can access. As we were saying before, kind of that meta view, that vertical perspective, right? We can surrender all of those attachments and ego agendas and all of those things that are holding us back.
Yeah, this is fantastic. So what is the would you with all the clients you've seen, what would you say is some of the main challenges, main blocks people have in
Yes.
terms of accessing the Akashic records?
Yeah. So I would say the main challenge, well, I call it ego mind interference,
Mm-hmm.
because the ego is so afraid of change,
Mm-hmm.
right? I feel the ego tends to equate change with death.
Yes.
And even if it's positive change, and would rather maintain the status quo, as you were saying before.
Yeah.
So the ego mind will try to make us afraid. So we'll throw fear into the mix, or about what am I going to see if I go into the records, or if I really open up intuitively, what am I going to
Mm.
see? What am I going to hear? Is it going to be scary? Is it going to require me to change in some way? So there can be a fear of change. There can be self-doubt. That's another
Mm-hmm.
one of the big ones that I
Mm-hmm.
see. So people come in and they wonder, can I really do this? Am I worthy enough to connect to the records? Which absolutely everyone is. We all have a divine birthright
Right.
to
We,
connect to
we
this
we can look
power.
at our records.
Yes, absolutely. Everyone. Yes.
It's not like the
There's just
government saying you can't look at these records.
right.
You
Oh
were
my God,
adopted,
no.
and the records are sealed, and you can't see who your birth
Oh
mother is.
no. Yeah, the government probably would say that. But anyway, so there's self-doubt, there's fear of change. There's also sometimes people are very afraid of surrendering and
Mhm.
letting go of control. Because when we go into the records, we really have to allow the records to take us where we most need to go. We don't control that process. We really have
Right.
to let go to that higher wisdom and that higher level of coherence and consciousness. Um, and because we are human and we have all these layers of conditioning, so it can be difficult to get past that desire to control the experience. Yeah, if that makes sense.
Yes, yes, yes. So what do you see as the benefit for humanity as humanity starts to explore? I think people are ready now
Oh,
at this
yeah.
time in our human history. It's like a whole tsunami wave
Yes.
of people waking up and realizing that their past religion was blocking them from spirituality, or
Yes.
their path atheism was blocking them from this dynamic field of love that we're all surrounded by, whatever name you choose to call it. So when you look at humanity as a whole, what do you see if as people start to tap into this?
Yes. Yeah, that's such a great question. And I have to say, I'm really excited that so the last I have an Akashic Records certification program where I certify other healers to be able to work with it.
This is
And
great.
the last two
Great.
rounds, I've had so many psychologists, psychiatrists, counselors coming in because they're interested in consciousness and expanding consciousness, and they're hitting up against the limits of what their traditional modalities and training can do. For example, like talk therapy is an extraordinary modality, but sometimes it doesn't get to some of the other aspects of a
Hmm.
human being,
Hmm.
if it's all, at the mental or cognitive level. So I'm really excited that people are exploring in this way to be able to bring the records to their clients as well. So the more we connect to the records, as I was saying earlier, the more we can shed layers of human density, the more we can shed any parts of us that are not a true reflection of who we really are and what we're really here to do. Also, this means being able to soften triggers and
Hmm.
not take things personally as much anymore. Releasing attachments, as we were saying before. So, and it all starts, with each of us individually, like doing the inner work. But I feel if we are all doing this individually in our homes, in our workplaces, in our communities, then eventually, which is what we need to happen, there will be just a collective expansion and raising of consciousness. So the collective consciousness. And then people can really get to express and embody their highest level selves and really contribute in the ways that they're meant to at that soul level, which ultimately benefits all of us. And there are also ripple effects. So the more we work with the records, because as you said, they are held in a field of love, unconditional love. So the more we work with the records, the more time we spend in that energy field, the more we develop unconditional love for ourselves first. And then we start to see everyone else and everything, the world around us, through a lens of unconditional love and acceptance, which doesn't mean we have to like everyone or make room for everyone in our lives. We're still going to have healthy boundaries, but at least we can see, we can get this deeper understanding of where people are coming from or why people are reacting the way they are. So again, we don't take things as personally, and we can just radiate this greater sense of peace and light. And so the ripple effects of that are just vast, I feel.
I like you talking about the different kinds of therapists coming in to get certificates in this. That's a really big leap. We have some psychologists and even some psychiatrists who refer their clients to Agape.
There you go.
And
Yes.
they're realizing
Powerful.
that they're making great breakthroughs by being in this field.
Yes.
And so we are making great moves. So with more and more people like that, psychologists, psychiatrists who have the degrees in the status quo field, opening up and then applying these same principles, that is another validation that what was once woo-woo, is now being validated by quantum physics, being validated actually by results.
Oh, that's such a good way of putting it.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, like genuine, lasting transformation in real people's lives. Yeah, that again have vast ripple effects, like all the way through. Yeah, that's such an important point.
There's a woman that sends her clients to us, and she was saying that she noticed that there was a couple of people that she was working with that were making such astounding healing in their life, and she found out that they were both going to Agape, and so they were like cutting through stuff and tapping into their higher self at a much more rapid pace, and that's when she started coming, and that's when she started referring her people. She says, "You're making my work a lot easier."
That's so good. Yeah, because you're addressing, every layer of the human being, like every level. It's not just the mental stories or what happened in the past and retelling the same story over and over. You're just really getting to all of the levels of a person. And I think that can create the lasting healing.
Yeah. And they're stepping into a field too. So when a client is sitting with you, both of you, your eyes are closed and you're in a meditative state. Is that what's going on?
We close our eyes to go into the records when I speak the portal prayer, but then we have our eyes open just like in a consciously awake state, but the records are open. So we're just receiving but continuing a conversation like this.
So would you say that you guys are in a theta state? Is it theta?
Oh yeah, that's a great way of putting it. Yes, it is definitely a heightened or altered state. So still consciously awake and aware, but definitely accessing this, as I said, super conscious.
Yeah, because I noticed a lot of times people will say that it's easier to enter into the Akashic Records when you're in theta. You can't do it in beta.
Completely.
But when
No.
you're in the theta state, you can enter in and ask questions and get
Exactly.
answers and things like that.
Yeah, I also like to say what we need to do to be able to merge, so because we each have our own personal energy fields. So to be able to merge our personal field with the field of the records and then just be one with the records, it's a process of kind of lifting our consciousness.
Yes.
Because we have to match the frequency of the records, which is higher than the frequency of the human dimension. So this is why the deep breathing, centering techniques, being out in nature, all of those things we can do to get into that altered state are really helpful.
Absolutely. This is fantastic.
Yeah.
So your podcast, Inner Work, Spiritual Growth Podcast, when did you start that? I mean, I was
I
on it, but
started
when did you
that.
start it? And
Oh, I know, yeah.
tell
And I
us
was
about it.
the episode we did was fabulous. So I started that, funnily enough, with my husband. It was his idea.
Mhm.
He is a very woo-woo spiritual guy. And we started that together in 2019, I think. And our
Mhm.
main purpose in the beginning was to walk people through A Course in Miracles.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which for me has been one of the most
Well, the Course in
life-changing.
Miracles vibrates very high.
Oh,
Yeah.
completely.
I used to
Yes.
teach that years ago.
Oh, yay. Yeah,
Mhm.
such an important text, I think, for the history of humanity.
Mhm.
So we were sharing little bits of that and explaining sort of how we understand A Course in Miracles. And then he left, and he said, okay, you can just run with the podcast and make it your own. So I did. And yeah, it's still going, however many years later.
So you started right before COVID.
Yes, it's true. We
So
did.
that was probably a nice urge from the universe because people were
Yes,
locked down. So they had
that's
the
true.
opportunity to actually pay attention because they couldn't go anywhere.
That's so true. Yes. And I always hear from people, oh, I found your podcast and I listened to 10 episodes in a row, which is like, so I'm so humbled by that. And I'm sure that happens to you too. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
nice to.
So you have on your website, you have a free mini course.
I have, so on my website, josephinehartman.com, which is
Mhm.
the best place to reach me right there at the top. If people go there, they'll be able to see, get the free Akashic Records mini course. Just click on that link and it will take you there. And the mini course is a series of 8 emails, daily emails with 8 videos. So I walk people through the whole process of what are the records, how do you get in, what's the prayer, how do you ask questions, so they can start doing it for themselves.
Oh, that's fantastic. So a lot of times I'll ask my guests,
Yeah,
because the title of the podcast is Take Back Your Mind. What is your go-to
yeah,
when you need to take back your mind, when there's swirling happening or there's a big
yeah,
challenge? What is your go-to spiritual, I don't want to say
yes,
spiritual hack, I'll say spiritual practice.
yes. That's such a great question. Well, I mean, I have to say the records because I do use them
Hmm.
daily.
Okay.
So generally, I will open my own records and go in, and then very quickly I can. What the records help me do is, you know, how as humans we can get really engrossed in the horizontal
Hmm.
reality. So, like from human to human, ego to ego, just down
Hmm.
here, the mundane details of
Yeah,
daily
yeah,
life.
yeah.
And when I tap into the records, which to me also happens, just to say, when I listen to Abraham Hicks,
Uh-huh.
it's a similar experience, that it helps me reconnect to the vertical
Yeah,
reality and reconnect to divine source so I can quickly like shift out of whatever program or story or whatever is coming up. That's not really who I am.
yeah. That's interesting. You mentioned Abraham Hicks because I was having dinner with her one evening,
Oh, cool.
and me and my cousins, this bunch of friends. She allowed me to bring a few of my friends,
Yeah.
and my cousin said to her, "Well, can I talk to Abraham
Yeah.
and ask some questions?"
Yeah.
And she said, "Well, I generally don't do that in small groups like this at a dinner. I generally
Oh,
do it." She says, "But because you're Michael's cousin,
oh,
I'll do it."
yeah.
And so she closed her eyes. This field happened, and she went around the circle, and everybody asked a question. By the time it got to me, I didn't have any questions because I was in answer land because
Wow.
she activated where I speak from.
Oh,
Because it activated me. I felt like I was about to speak to 10,000 people, so I
wow.
didn't have any questions.
That's
And then they said, Michael doesn't have any questions because he's here with us. She said, we share the same pool of information,
yeah.
you know, and it was very, because it was sudden. I mean, I'm regularly just having dinner talking. And as soon as she shifted to Abraham, my whole body just went whoop. And I was right there with her, like, I'm getting ready to teach.
Yes, that's an incredible story. Thanks
Yeah.
for sharing that. And I suspect that anytime you would go into the records, the same thing would
Yeah.
happen, right? Because
Yeah.
again, it's ultimately we're tapping directly to divine source. and to the same sort of essential level of truth, you know, that which I feel is what Abraham Hicks
Yeah.
speaks. So
She's
yeah.
because watching her over the years, her tapping in so often has changed her personality. Her human beingism has changed.
Yes,
You know,
that makes a lot of sense.
she's really grown. It's very beautiful. She was
Wow.
beautiful already, but I'm just saying it.
Oh
I
yeah,
can
yeah,
see her
yeah.
transformation.
Yeah,
Now, can
absolutely.
you like go into the Akashic Records for people's businesses
Oh yeah,
and their
absolutely.
nonprofits and things like that? Yeah, how does that work?
Yes, yes. So do you mean like opening the records of a business
Yeah,
or
opening the records
using
for
them?
business,
Okay.
both, and using
Yeah,
the
both,
Akashic
right.
Records
Yes. Yeah, you
for
can do both.
future choices or
Yes.
choices that would be made that would impact the business
Yes.
or the endeavor.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. All of the above again. So we just as individuals have their personal Akashic
Mhm.
records that we can access. So do, for example, countries. So we could
Mhm.
open the records of the United States, which,
Uh-oh.
yeah, right? Let's not do that right now. But so countries, buildings, so people can open the records of their house, for
Wow.
example,
And see
or
what
if
kind of
there's
vibe was there.
exactly. If you're thinking about buying a house and you have
Mhm.
the address, you can
Mhm.
open the records and see, does the energy align with where I am and all of that. Or yeah, you can open the records of a corporation or a company or a school. If people are thinking about going back to school for
Mhm.
whatever program or degree, you can open the records of the school and see, again, does that align with my energy? Is that the best place for me to be? And we can also use the records, which again I do daily or weekly, for as a tool for business growth.
Mhm.
So opening the records, and that's the way I do my podcast. Actually, I'll open the records and ask, how can I be of most service with
Mhm.
this episode?
Right.
What do people most need to hear from me? So I get myself out of the way, I get my ego out of the way, and then I just let the records kind of speak through
Yeah,
me. Yeah.
I understand that because when I get ready to speak, I may have one point or two, a
Yeah.
theme, but then
Yeah.
I throw myself open so that what needs to come through now,
Yes.
today, can
Yes.
have its way with me. Yeah.
Yes. I love how you're saying that. Yeah.
Mhm.
So, and of course we can use the open the records and ask, you know, about, oh, if I use this marketing strategy or whatever, is
Hmm.
that in highest alignment?
Mm-hmm.
Is that the most ethical
Mm-hmm.
path for me and for my business? So yeah, we can use it in so many different ways.
Have you worked with like teams? Like if, let's say a team comes in that's operating a business together or a board comes in. You ever
Yeah.
worked with teams for a project?
I would love to do that. I haven't done that yet. I've worked with, you know, like small business owners, just
Right.
the one
Person.
person team.
Yeah.
But yeah, that would be fascinating to do that.
Interesting. Very good. Well,
Yeah.
hope I just opened up something for you.
Yeah. That would be incredible. I am open to receive.
So let me ask you, anything that we left out that you want to share with the people that are tuning in right now?
Ooh, well, I definitely do always want to emphasize as much as possible that we all have that divine birthright to be able to access what we call the Akashic Records or this field of deep wisdom and love and quantum healing. So like no special gifts or talents are required. It's not an exclusive
Hmm.
thing. It's just a matter of getting the mental chatter out of the way a little bit,
Hmm.
and allowing the intuitive senses to open up, and then we can all just go in and flow and receive whatever we need to receive, and everything is healable. So anything we've experienced in the past or we're experiencing in the present is healable. There's a way out, there's always a solution, and the records can really empower us to find that most aligned path for us.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, Dr. Josephine, thank you so much for
Thank you.
being with us today. Tell our wonderful listeners and those who are viewing us right now as well, uh, your website again and how they can find you.
Yes, thank you so much. So people can go to josephinehartman.com. That's the best place to reach me. And again, the mini course is right there at the top. I'm also on Instagram, and the handle for that is @healer.josephine. And my podcast, Inner Work, a Spiritual Growth podcast, across most podcast platforms.
Fantastic. And you may want to go to that podcast and see our conversation in which we reversed. She was asking the questions in the interview. And
Yeah, that was
it might be
incredible.
fun for you to see that podcast as well.
Amazing. Yes. Thank you so much for providing the space for us to speak. It's been amazing.
Absolutely. It's been great. I can feel the energy. So thank you. Have a beautiful day. When you go into the field, release a prayer for me.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Josephine.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Have a beautiful day.
You too.
Everyone, that was Dr. Josephine Hardman. And I know you got a lot out of it. I know you felt her frequency and her vibration. You know her website. And just thank you for tuning in. Peace and blessings. Dynamic blessings. And I'm welcoming you to our moment in the Take Back Your Mind podcast, which is an extremely important moment. It's a moment of meditation, being still, silent, and moving into sacred solitude so we can have access to our super soul self, sometimes called the higher self, the authentic self, the real self, the eternal self, the immortal self, who you really are. Because often we play different parts in our life. We have constructs of personality and sub-personalities that emerge when circumstances or conditions are ripe for those particular aspects of ourselves to come out. But there is something about us that's eternal. It's not altered by time or experience. It's not touched by other people's perception or even our own. It's who we really are. Now, when you meditate, one of the things that you're sitting for is to actually begin to wake up to who you are and what you are. What you are is an emanation of the only life that there is. Who you are is an individual, unique expression of the what. And so when you're sitting in meditation, which is learning how to pay undistractable attention to reality, you begin to wake up. Pinpricks of insight occur. Revelations happen. Healings happen, which means you're peeling away the layers that have been constructed around you for your survival in this dimension. And you start to have aha moments. You wake up. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. So we're going to take a few moments. We're going to center, and we're going to practice the art and the science of meditation. I invite you to have your feet on the ground, and unless you're sitting in a full lotus position, just have your feet on the ground. Take your hands, have your thumb and forefinger touching as a mudra of transcending egoic perception. Have them on your lap facing upward as an intention to be receptive, available, allowing, surrendering, saying yes to life. We close the outer eyes. We give permission for the inner eye to open. And we sit with the intention of waking up to our glorious nature. In this moment of sacred solitude, aloneness, we don't have to be any way for anyone else. We're just coming to know who we really are. This moment I'm reminded of that sacred koan. The koan is a riddle that breaks down the ego. It's a great koan that says, show me the face you had before your parents were born. It's nothing that the ego can decipher. It ultimately leads us to a revelation that we are eternal beings and existed even before our parents were even born. We're here to wake up to our glorious nature. Sit, be still, and carry an intention to wake up to your glorious nature. The surface mind drifts. The conditioned mind drifts. You notice the drift. Come back to our intention, and perhaps our body breathing. And begin again. Our intention to wake up to our super soul self, our real self. Another moment of pure stillness, sacred solitude. Just allow ourselves to give thanks that we exist, that we are alive. Even as we open our eyes, we carry this feeling tone of connectivity to all of life into our actions, our speech. Even our thoughts are influenced by our connection to the ineffable presence of that which is never in absence. We open our eyes and we just give thanks, smile at each other. Give thanks for all the beings that are tuning in at exactly the same time, and we let it be, and so it is. Thank you for joining me in the Way of Meditation service today. And if you'd like to join me every Sunday for the Way of Meditation service, I facilitate it at the Agape International Spiritual Center at 6:45 a.m. Pacific Time every Sunday. I give a brief Dharma talk, and then we practice. AgapeLive.com, YouTube. We'll see you when we take back our mind on a weekly basis. Have a beautiful day. Peace and blessings. I truly hope that you are enjoying Take Back Your Mind podcast. The Take Back Your Mind podcast is sponsored primarily by the Agape International Spiritual Center. In other words, everything that you see in terms of the staff that puts this together, the editing, the equipment, all of this is sponsored by our Agape International Spiritual Center. So if you are enjoying the podcast, I'm inviting you to support the sponsor. Support Agape. Simply go to AgapeLive.com and make a donation. And say in the donation that you are supporting the podcast. It allows us to keep broadcasting. It allows us to keep putting these magnificent moments together with these wonderful people that I get to interview. We keep having the possibility of updating the equipment that's necessary and providing the wonderful content that many of you are writing in and saying, I really love the podcast. Support the podcast. Support the sponsor. Agape International Spiritual Center. AgapeLive.com. You can also text to donate You can text the word GIVE to 424-321-6243 and put podcast so that we know that you're really supporting this wonderful podcast. Our secondary sponsor is AdaptoZen, ADAPTOZEN. This is my superfood greens. It's nutritionally dense because I teach spirit, mind, and body. We want our body temples to be healthy. So one of the products is my superfood greens. You can go to NutraRise.com. Those three little lines you see, you hit those three little lines and you'll see AdaptoZen. There's two products, my superfood greens and a product called Elevate, which are organic mushrooms for your health. You can put both in your smoothies so that you have main ingredients for the health of your body temple. These are our sponsors. Primary sponsor, Agape International Spiritual Center. Secondary sponsor, AdaptoZen. I want you to be healthy. I want you to be wise. Circulate and share. Peace and blessings. Your time is very valuable, so I want to thank you for lending us your ear and participating in taking back your mind. If you want to submit a question for the question of the week, please submit it to podcast@michaelbeckwith.com. If you've enjoyed what you've heard today, please submit a review and let us know your thoughts. Stay on top of current episodes by subscribing to the podcast so that you'll receive alerts and not miss one single episode. And feel free to share this podcast with all of your friends and family. And until we meet again, take back your mind and you will take back your life. Peace and blessings.